This, well, I guess will have to be a part 2. As I was just saying when my phone interrupted because I hit the screen. I think. It's basically the bad luck for working too hard. Like I said, I want to go do nothing and eat lunch. On the video, a guy was showing how to change this a control arm, trailer arm. I thought my brackets might be a little worn out right here. All these might be a little worn out. I feel some of them are already, I can see the rubber cracking on a couple. These are Jeep, whatever, they're 22 bucks. The new ones are offset. The guy in the video did it backwards by accident, but he was like a mechanic, and he was putting his jack right there where this thing is. I already picked up the whole car with it as an idiot, because I knew it was a risk again. We have to position that really carefully not to bump into these things. It looks like it is, but it's not. And and you can pick it up, but it's like, it doesn't go. That's what I was about to say before. It goes up, this thing that looks like a chassis, but they're all over the bottom of the car, and they don't seem to go anywhere. It combines with this piece of flat metal on top. It just blends in with it, combines with it, which goes underneath the control arm, or sometimes called a subframe, the one I was just yapping about. From here is a recommended jacking point from the control arm. So in other words, if you pick up this control arm, what is above it supposedly lifts the car. I have done it before. I've lifted the whole car with it. But that side of this chassis looking thingamajig, if I could film it without the, whatever, what is that, the gas tank? Yeah, without the gas tank getting in the way, upside down. The reason this guy put this control arm backwards, you're supposed to have the offset on the inside of the car, but he had it downside up when he was assembling it. So he said, put it near the, but he made a mistake. I think it's more stable if you actually put it the way it's not supposed to be. So on his, it was like more towards this side. This is the optical illusion. This is in the center, because there is no sides. But on his, he put it here by accident because it was upside down when he assembled it. It's supposed to be here. I called the Dorman dealer and double checked, even when it's downside up or reverse. It's supposed to be here, this inside. I said, fine, I'll do it this way. But frankly, it looks more sturdy here because it's right in between the bulk of the entire bolt. This would be the middle on this side. But oh well, who knows what Dorman's thinking. Maybe they have some reason. I have no idea. Anyway, you have Dorman advice. You have Dorman's advice on assembling the new offset control trailing arm, which is totally relevant to this video. As I was saying, this guy was doing it that way. He had the actual full car lift and had this flat thing right there and lifted up the whole car for this. So I said, maybe it's not bad. He seemed like a mechanic. He was like a TRQ mechanic. It goes up over this control arm, under, actually over, which you call it under because it's behind it. And like when I say things are hiding beneath all these things, they're not really hiding beneath them, they're hiding above them. But you look at this same thing that looks like a chassis, which isn't, and it never ever goes like straight across the thing, and it ends up there. Almost looks like it's resting on this flat thing, but it isn't. It is resting on, on the other side it had some slack. Maybe I bend it when I lift this thing up. The other side it had like a 1/4 inch or something space. This one it doesn't. I wonder if it bent. In any event, I don't know if it's safe. I lifted it up from standing outside the car like an idiot. Seemed to lift up this thing fine, right off the wheel, and by accident lifted off that wheel too. So it's kind of like lifting up the side of a rectangle a little bit on the inside. And, in the future, I'll put another jack stand like there and lower it onto jack stand so it's equally supported. But I still don't know if it has any strength because I don't know what it's lifting up here. It's again hiding beneath and behind a piece of metal. Pinch wells don't work. These things don't work. They're not on the list. That's my Chinese jackspot question. Thing that looks like a chassis but isn't. Here's another thing that looks like a chassis but isn't. Just a few inches behind it. I'm trying to point the camera at this thing. A few inches behind it and off to what we're looking at is the left, which is actually towards the center of the car a little bit. Another one. I'm turning the camera now, so you see that thing turn? That goes all the way across the car to the center of the car. All these flat pieces of metal that go like 5 feet each. There's more of them over here on the other side, whatever that is. Is that a caddy converter? I don't know. They go all the way across the car. I don't know what's behind them. I don't know what's supporting this particular chunk of fake chassis, old style chassis. This is a uniframe car, which has unibody design these years. Used to be a body on frame, which was totally fake because there's nothing to do with the body. It's frame on chassis. And now it's unibody, which also has nothing to do, I meant to say it had nothing to do with the body because it's not body, it's frame on chassis. Body on frame. It's not the body, of course it's the body on the frame. Every car's, the body is resting on everything. But what the description is actually called body on frame. It's not, it is frame on chassis. And now, these days, there's a unibody, which again has nothing to do with the body. That is where the chassis and the frame, like here, are intermingled. Just like this fake chassis going up behind this thing, and then it going behind this thing, whatever this thing is, and a giant pieces of metal hiding everything, so you don't know where everything is behind it, or what's supporting what, or if this fake chassis thing, where it ends here going, what I'm calling backwards, actually forwards. I'm looking, that's the front of the car up there. I don't know what's supporting this thing. That's the secret Chinese question. And this ended up taking forever, man. I got a babbling problem. I really do. You ever hear, by the way, before I end this video, have you ever heard of by the way, this thing right here, I'm looking up at it, it's like 15 inches high. The video part doesn't show it, but it's quite high to go from here to here. Once this thing's on a couple bricks, it's about 2 feet high. The bricks are about 7 inches, whatever. This thing's like 2 feet in the air. When you're lowered to the ground, you can't get any jack underneath it because the exhaust pipes are in the way. So you have to back it on. I got some of these ramps. I don't have them. They're not nearby. But those little $30 ramps, those little rubber ramps. It backs it onto one brick, and then it's high enough that you can weasel some sort of a jack around this exhaust pipe, these exhaust pipes, to it, and you can jack it up from the center of the car. I'm sure how to get a camera there though. Oh, there it is. Once you do that, you can do it. Once you get this thing up and you're on 7 inches of bricks, 9 inches of bricks, and you try to lift this thing up with a jack with no matter how many adapters, all of a sudden it is 29 inches high. I've already done it, and making a stupid mistake, not to mention it was bent and I misplaced jack. My state of mind wasn't right. Ended up the entire jack fell over sideways. Luckily it didn't hit the gas tank or much stuff, as far as I know. And the reason it fell over, in addition to all those screw-ups I made, bad state of mind, didn't center the jack right, this, that, and the other, muddy, mushy ground, a lot of different things, but a much, much bigger screw-up, why this whole thing fell over. Well, let me get to the original point I was babbling about. To jack this up, you need a jack with a special adapter. I got it in the trunk. 29 inches high to lift it up high enough to put the last third brick to make it about 10 inches beneath each tire. Because it goes up, the shocks, I'm telling you it's 2 feet here or 15 inches here. Don't forget, once you lift it up, you have to lift up another 7-9 inches just to lift up the chassis and the frame off of the wheel so that the shocks start to go up. By then you're at like 27 inches. Then you got to lift it up another 3 inches so the tires get off 4 inches more off the ground so you can slither the 3-inch brick, like one of those underneath it. And when I did that, 29 inches high jacks are rather tippable. As you might have guessed, the higher the jack is, the more easy it is for things to tip it. I was on a tilted hill. I don't know if the front wheels were lined up right, but worse than all that stuff together, which I may be exaggerating a little bit in a way. In other words, to say I'm leaving out that I was kind of skilled about other things. Well, I didn't place it that badly, and I don't know. Some things I did right. But in any event, the whole thing fell over, and now I will tell you why. Because of the dreaded, which I'll include in the title, diamond cain conundrum. We were talking in a YouTube video or some chat forum. Some guy says, I don't think anyone would be stupid to just line up 4 jack stands in a straight line. I go, I don't think so either. And then it turned out that I did by accident. I had 4 jack stands, something like this, 2 things on bricks, 2 things on jack stands up there. I don't know if you can see behind all this gobbledygook, but there's 2 jack stands up there. And 2 tires on bricks like this. And then I figured, well, I'll take this thing. This wasn't here back at the time. It's got a different adapter that matches the front crossbars. I was talking about adapters. See the round thing? It can match adapters. I got an adapter that matches the center of the front crossmember, a known recommended jack point. So I put this underneath that. I said, now it's on 5 things, 4 jack stands and that. And I said, let me come back here with, it's not this jack. I have this really tall jack, this off-road jack that's 29 inches high, like I was talking about. And that's another thing. I didn't put the adapter on it yet. That made it slippery. A lot of mistakes. Anyway, I'm jacking it up thinking, well, it's got 5 points now. I'll jack up from the center back here, the center of the rear cross member. Also, I've heard someone call it a subframe, which only rests on this flat piece of metal above it, so to speak. Who knows what's behind that? Obviously, probably something, since they recommend this for a jack point. And I'm jacking it up. It's off the ground. It's off the wheels back here. Got both the wheels in the air. But I'm like, all right, that's 5 points. I'll jack it up from back here. Once I put the jack on it, it was 6 points. Sounds all good, does it not? First, I jack this up, and it's off both of these wheels. I'm not going to swivel the camera around, but as you know, there's another wheel behind me. Now it's only at 4 points. Thus, the diamond cain conundrum. Well, still, you're at 5 points, then 6 points. You start jacking it up, lift it off the back wheels like a triangle rectangle technique, which does work. It was just a triangle, I'd be fine. I've used the triangle rectangle technique, which I'm one of the probably many people who've coined that name for it. I thought I invented it, but probably a million people invented it. But anyway, I invented something in my mind, and I called it the triangle rectangle technique, which works great. Three points on the ground is somewhat stable. And I'm jacking it up. There's 5 points, and there's 6 points when I put the jack here. Then I jack this up, goes off the 2 tires, and now it's only 4 points. Well, like, fine, 4 points. It's even better than 3, whatever. It's at the corner of a diamond. This thing, 2 jack stands up there, and one of these up at about 2 feet or 1 or 2 feet further in the center of the cross member. Well, guess what? Soon as I jacked it up a little more, as I told you, 29 inches. I don't know if I should call that a little. Those were pretty high, but not 29 inches. Guess what happens when you jack up one end of a diamond to the 2 things that aren't at the end, that are, even if they're not middle way to the end, like they're near the end, those 2 jack stands up there, they're just a foot or 2 from the end. If you jack it up pretty high, guess what becomes of the 4 points? 1. Cain. The diamond cain conundrum. By the way, luckily it didn't land. The jack fell over. Luckily it didn't land on jack on. Hey, diggity dog, or Snoopy. Luckily it didn't land on the gas tank or the electrical wires or anything. This is the tire. That's the gas tank. It fell like that. It didn't. You know where it fell? It fell in here to dented the muffler, which still doesn't seem to make too much noise. But dumb luck, man, or I wouldn't be sending you this much too long video. Why I'm talking about this is because of this. That thing's 29 inches high. It's not exactly the optimal height to jack things up by, the rear cross member, when you're really jacking up and putting on bricks or jack stands or whatever. Hence, I have the adapter. It's 3 inches. It matches that thing. It wraps around that cross member bushing, that trailing arm cross member bushing, and supposedly, I've already done it, if you lift things up by that thing, scooping around the wheel knuckle, that big metal thing there, it lifts up either one wheel or the entire car. And if you want it to not be tilting the edge of a jack, and you want it to be something to go straight beneath both of them, that will be much lower. It's already 5 inches lower than this thing up here. But when you lift it up, you don't have to lift it up 7 more inches higher to get the tires off the ground, because it's directly lifting the tires and the car up. So it's actually 12 inches lower, at least. If you want a straight thing, just get a straight piece of metal across it. I call it the pinch skipper, because it skips the pinch welds entirely. And it's a 51-inch piece of metal. This probably isn't the best way to do it. I'm waiting for other people to weld this too. 3-inch C angle wrapped around it. Beneath that is hiding behind this piece of metal, which I can't lift up because I got other pieces of metal holding it together. This is 1.5-inch kind of hollow by 3/4-inch piece of metal. This thing's wedged in here. Beneath that is what exactly was the diameter? I think it was 2.25 inches. It matches this thing. It matches the inside of this, which is a lot less than 3 inches because it's tapered. These things are 1 1/8 inch by 1 inch. There's one on each side. And then you put this thing here, you put this thing over it, hopefully it has some strength. That's the whole shish kebab. On the end of it, these are 3/8 inch. This is really hard to do with one hand. And it's not deburred yet either. These are 3/8 inch by 1 1/8 inch by 5 inches. Probably too much. And then you have this thing. I got somewhere in my trunk 1.5 inch wide, the same distance as this, which I will weld these things on so they, dang it, boom. So I will weld these two things onto that 1.5-inch thing so they stick to it, and it slides like this and this, and it'll have, you know, a little diagonal thing on the end that catches the other end of that bolt. So this is adjustable on both sides. You slide this hobgoblin underneath both wheels, and it scoops behind each trailing arm bushing, and then you can put a jack under here, supposedly, or maybe one jack on each side in case it bends or whatever, and jack up the whole car from the lowest possible angle. And if you need to, you can move the jack over here or over here to jack it up for one side. If you jack it up from here, since this is more in the center, the thing that the secret Chinese spot that this video is half about, it jacks up both sides by accident, which kind of sucks. From here, you could do it much closer to the wheel. It probably, just by experience lately, jacks up just one side of the car. Your choice, so you can jack up the whole thing too. But you can even put jack stands underneath it. It's much lower, it's much more location adjustable, and all that crap. The power or low button keeps popping up. I wonder if that's interrupting my video completely. Well, I'll call it an end. This is part 2 because the phone shut off before. Bing, bada bling. Man, this video sucked. I know it sucked. Sorry about that.